Trading 360. I'm Nicole Petalides. It's Friday. We're live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. It's time for the big three on a day where we're hitting new highs for the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. Let's see what we're looking at in the big three. Three stocks, three charts, three trades. Rick Ducat will take us through the charts. Here to take us through the trades, Joe Tagay, portfolio manager of the Rational Equity Armor Fund. Good morning to you both. First up, we're looking at Broadcom, AVGO, Joe. Actually, you know what? Why don't you give us a market thought? Are you feeling more positive or negative these days?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's great to be here. Good to see you, and happy December. Happy Jobs Friday. And I think Jobs Friday can only be viewed positively. The headline number was fantastic. And I know inflation looks like to be a concern. The wage growth was high, but let's keep in mind, wage growth is good in a nutshell. And I think this needs to be viewed positively for the market. Remember, back in September, the Fed stepped out on a limb and said, we're going to care more about growth in the economy than about inflation. They cut 50 basis points. They've got another 25. More cuts are still coming. So yes, inflation might be a concern. I think that's down the road. And yeah, I'm not saying that's going to be great if it does happen, but for the short term, the immediate future, I think equity holders have to view this positively. Inflation, unfortunately, is bad for the overall economy, but it's good for equities. It'll be good for the major corporations that the equities are holding.
Okay. So with that, let's hear a little bit about Broadcom today. Why is this one on your radar?
Yeah, so we got cloud growth, we got software growth, we got infrastructure growth, three big things. It has earnings next week, so it's going to be a big one to watch. Broadly, we're seeing new all-time highs in the market, but the semiconductors are lagging in the post-election bounce. I'd love to see that pick up some steam. I'd love to see it expand out from just NVIDIA also too. So yes, this is a key earnings for me. This is another company. It's in my portfolio. I'm going to hold it for the long term. There might be some pullbacks along the way. There might be some days when interest rates are going higher and tech looks bad, or there might be some days where the dollar's strong and it's hard for some mega cap corporations. But when you average it out overall over the next 3-5 months or the whole year of 2025, really, I think this company will do fantastic. It is strongly positioned, so I like it for the long term, especially in the next upcoming year.
Yeah, and most of these 47 analysts that are covering this are mostly buy ratings and overweight, so they are positive on it as well. Let's see what Rick Ducat has to say about the charts, please, Rick.
For so many stocks, August 5th was a really important day that marked a series of troubles with the Japanese stock market. It sent equities plunging. This was our bottom point that we had in the near term, and that's what gives us the basis for our prevailing upward sloping trend line here. You can duplicate it, put it across these highs, matches up pretty well, gives us a place to project potential resistance. So the overall trend is up, but if you kind of look a little bit closer, it's kind of more of a zigzag type shape here. Downward trending, kind of upward trending. And then once again, you can see between our two white dashed lines a more narrow, more short-term downward sloping channel beginning with these highs near 186.42. So now we are also having a bit of a situation where we've got our two shorter-term moving averages, 21-day, 63-day exponential moving averages clustered together right on top of each other at 169. We've managed to clear that. A bullish breakout above these indicators is noteworthy here. RSI also making a push to the upside, breaking above the 50 midline and looking like we are breaking above this longer term downward sloping red trend line on the RSI. So kind of an interesting situation developing here for a potential breakout. When we look at some horizontal levels and our volume profile study, you can see we're in kind of the thick of a volume node right now, an area of heavy trading. There's another one just below it as well. So between like maybe 165 and 172, those would be some areas to watch. But here, you can see we have a persistent ceiling near 185. That's really the mark to beat here as we go forward for the bulls. Beyond that, +1 standard deviation channel near 204 could be another resistance point. To the downside here, we've got our -1 standard deviation channel lining up with our recent lows near about 158. That could be another area to watch.
Okay, Rick, thank you for that. Great charts there. Final thoughts on this name, please, Joe.
Yeah, Rick, I love that chart. Great point bringing up October 5th, Yen Mageddon. It seems like a lifetime ago back in August when they had the volatility pop. But yeah, it's been a great run up since then, continuing to find some support where you expect it. I like this. I like this name, and I still like the AI story. I still like the software infrastructure cloud story altogether. I think it's going to be a perfect storm for AVGO.
All right. And that's been a real winner, right? It's up 83% in 1 year. PayPal next up 52% in 1 year. So these have been really nice performers for shareholders. Where do you think this one could be headed, Joe?
Yeah, so this one goes on with the story of the consumer growth, the consumer demand, but it also goes into like the digital payment structure. Now, a lot of hodlers out there are celebrating the 100,000 mark in Bitcoin. People are enthused that maybe there will be a deregulation happening in the new administration. Well, if that does happen, there might be some more online payment transfers. I think PayPal is best positioned to capture that. I'd much rather play the cryptocurrency world in this type of fashion. I trust the rest of their business, which of course is growing. The digital payments are already growing. People aren't using cash very much anymore. People are paying each other peer to peer a lot more than they used to. So I think that business is growing. I think there's a ton of growth if we get into the crypto space, if we see PayPal expand that way. So I'd much rather play digital currencies, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin with a trusted name like PayPal than be in the coin itself. So I like it for those reasons. Of course, bottom line is they're growing their traditional revenue. The economy is growing, and their payments, online payments are growing.
Okay. Look, you're seeing a lot of potential here and catalysts for growth potentially. Rick, some of your thoughts on the technicals, please.
Yeah, kind of two distinct phases in this chart, we could say, because for much of the past 52 weeks, kind of topping out around here, kind of making a consistent high around that level near like 68, which then became a baseline here. That became support. So old resistance became new support here. Another way you could have maybe drawn it was more of a downward sloping trend line paired with horizontal support, maybe more of like a wedge, downward sloping triangle type shape. Either way, we started to get really a sea change here when we had earnings during July, a big push to the upside. We took out all of our moving averages and started to make some upside progress here. More recently, though, we kind of have two conflicting patterns, because here you could start from these same lows again. From that point, we're up like 60%. You could draw this kind of wedge type shape here between our two white dashed lines here. Alternately, you could also draw this purple trend line beginning with this low point that we saw here. So by one measure, we had kind of a major breakout beyond our purple trend line. By another measure, we're still kind of within the wedge pattern. Either way, we've fought our way back up to be on pace for a new high close here, but still a little bit short of those intraday highs near 90.27 from yesterday. RSI trending down for the most part, though, but you could also argue we've got a bit of a more of an uptrend here, so kind of a triangular shape, really, but much closer to an upside breakout. Look for a push into 70 as a sign of further strength. Some other areas to watch in terms of standard deviations. Well, if we keep pushing to the upside, that's probably where everyone's interested in right now, is breaking new highs. 96.65 or so could be one area to watch. That's our +2 standard deviation channel. 2 standard deviations up from our blue linear regression line, our line of best fit. To the downside, we could see a retest of those old highs, which also happen to line up with our +1 channel and pretty close to a volume node too. So around like 88 could be a noteworthy support area.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rick. And there you have it. Joe?
Yeah, Rick nailed it again. It's just been a great chart. Just been really off to the races since August, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to jump in and buy it really aggressively right here, but it definitely is a hold for me. Definitely is an area where if it does pull back to some of those levels Rick pointed out, would be an opportunity to add.
All right, next up we have Amazon, which obviously has been a great performer. This one's up 52% over 1 year. You just heard John Corpina talking about how well some of these Mag 7 names have been acting. More potential to the upside. What could be the catalyst here, Joe?
Yeah, well, the stories I've been talking about, the strong economy, the inflation, and the deregulation, it all is boding well, of course. And of course, the AI trade, the software trade, the cloud trade, everything is in Amazon's favor here, and the stock is acting like it. Don't get me wrong, we're absolutely off to the races lately, and I think it's very justified.
Okay, off to the races, and look, there's a lot of folks with some high hopes and positive outlooks for 2025. Let's take a look at the charts, please, Rick Duquette.
So once again, August 5th, the key day when we look at this one, that was the low point that we saw here shortly after earnings, gives us the basis for this upward channel type shape. Our two white dashed lines, parallel lines, one going across the lows, the conventional way to draw a trend line. Then if you just duplicate it, put it across the highs, it happens to match up pretty well. That's about where we're at right now. So perhaps a temporary consolidation or slowdown point to consider here as we approach kind of the middle of our trading day that will conclude this week here, but far above our moving averages, continuing to make new highs. We're on a streak of, let's see, 2, 4, 7 green candles in a row here. Six green candles here. So just continuing to push to the upside here, making our way into the overbought area once again here on the RSI. Kind of had a bit of a ceiling right there. We did technically make a higher RSI close that day. It's very hard to see, but we did do so. So there was not bearish divergence here, but we would want a strong push above those previous levels to kind of solidify things for the bulls. So as we look at our standard deviation channels and our volume profile, well, the volume is kind of, we've left it behind really. We're kind of out of the thicker areas near 200, 186. Those are the major volume areas. A little bit of a pocket right here near like 207 or so. But the horizontal areas to watch right around here, our low point 216. That's where we had our low after our gap up. And then kind of around here was another bottom near like 211 to the upside. +2 standard deviation channel comes in near 230, 240 or so. That could be one area to watch as we go forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Rick. You know, as I look here, and the median price target is around 235. It's at 224 today, so upside of about $10 for the median target, but mostly buy ratings. The high end would be 285, and you have 70 analysts covering this name. Again, as I said, mostly buy ratings. Do you think we might see, Joe, are you looking for some sort of Santa Claus rally too?
That certainly is possible. We had the fantastic shopping season. We had the Black Friday breaking records, Cyber Monday breaking records. So you couple in the strong jobs report, the wage growth that we're seeing. It stands to reason. Also, you know, the consumer sentiment on the rise. It stands to reason you would see something. You know, that said, things are tricky. Sometimes people do a little selling into the new year. So there's no guarantee of that. People who do look tax loss harvesting is certainly a possibility. So there's no guarantee of it, but it's something I'm obviously open to. But while we're at it, you know, it's just going to be something that's going to play out over the course of the next year or so. So there will be some pullbacks. There will be some days we get interest rates rising in the midterm, in like the 10 years or so, and you see some of these tech stocks pull back, and that's just going to be okay. It's something we're going to deal with because we know the long term is going to be just fine. Even if interest rates go higher, it's kind of a sign the economy is doing really good. The economy is doing good. These stocks are going to do great.
All right, Joe Duquette, great to see you. Rational Equity Armor Fund, Rick Duquette there on the charts. We looked at Broadcom, PayPal, and Amazon for our big three today.